Welcome to Australian Immigration News. In tonight's edition, concerning trends for state sponsorship invitations, the most significant changes to children-dependent medical requirements in the last 25 years, more flexibility given to domestic violence sufferers for PR skilled visas, our Assistant Immigration Minister flies to India to promote the new MATES visa but gets confused, certain overseas specialist doctors to be fast-tracked for Australian registration. Hi, I'm Karl Konrad, and this show is brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services, the company I founded in Sydney now more than 26 years ago. A concerning trend is emerging in some of the state sponsorship invitation rounds. On Thursday this week, Western Australia has issued no invitations to those occupations outside its priority industry sectors. This is the third invitation round in a row this has occurred, and they have already nearly used half of their sponsorship allocations. In the invitation round data shown here, no invitations were given in the all other occupations on the Western Australia Skilled Migration Occupation List and the Graduate Occupation List. This is compared to priority occupations shown here. It is yet to be seen how long this trend will continue, but it is mirrored also in the ACT. In the ACT's latest invitation round, invitations were only offered in occupations in priority sectors. You can see here that most occupations are marked as NA, even though they are on the critical skills list. You will note their comment on the top of the results. Canberra matrix submissions in occupations in critical sectors for this invitation round. There is no actual list of occupations in critical sectors, but now we can see it clearly anyway, as they are all the occupations that received invitations. We'll leave a link to both of the invitation details in the description of this video, and keep an eye on what's going on. The biggest migration law changes in the last 25 years relating to visa dependents were released this week. Children who would typically fail the medical requirements may still be granted their visas if certain conditions are met. This has been changed by the Migration Amendment Public Interest Criteria 4005 and 4007 Regulations 2024. Also this week were the new provisions for most skilled visas, where a dependent spouse may still obtain their residency if domestic violence has occurred. This was modified through the Migration Amendment Family Violence Provisions for Skilled Visa Applications, Regulations 2024. Now, these domestic violence provisions apply to these visas only, and I stress only to these visa subclasses: Employer Nomination Scheme Subclass 186, Regional Sponsored Migration Scheme Subclass 187, Skilled Independent Subclass 189, Skilled Nominated Subclass 190, Permanent Resident Skilled Regional Subclass 191, Global Talent Subclass 858, Skilled Regional Subclass 887. The new laws mean that a secondary applicant can be granted their visa even if their relationship with the primary applicant has ceased. If the secondary applicant, a member of the family unit, or a dependent child of either or both applicants has experienced family violence committed by the primary applicant. If the secondary applicant was in Australia at the time the application was made or have entered Australia since that time. And if the primary applicant is granted their visa or is refused their visa on grounds relating to family violence. So this means if the main applicant gets refused due to failing the points test or some other technical detail, the whole family will not get their visa either. For the 186 and 187 visas, which require employers to nominate applicants, even if the nomination is withdrawn for the secondary applicant because the relationship has ended, they can still be considered to gain their PR.
Why is Daddy going away? Is it my fault? Just kidding, I have been waiting for this. All my problems are my parents' fault!
Now, there are many circumstances to consider, and it is complicated. Still, these changes are a fundamental shift in the department's acceptance that family violence can occur during the processing of skilled PR visas, often to the significant detriment of a secondary applicant. Another significant compassionate approach by the Immigration Department has been adopted in relation to children passing the public interest medical criteria. New rules give significant concessions, but only to children who were born in Australia and are ordinarily resident here. If they are, then in relation to PIC 4005 and PIC 4007, they are not required to satisfy the Minister that they are free from a disease or a condition that would necessitate the provision of healthcare or community services, which would result in a significant cost to the Australian community or prejudice the access of an Australian citizen or permanent resident to that healthcare or community service. Now, these changes will only benefit a relatively small number of visa applicants, but they are incredibly significant. The concession has been made only to children born in Australia and are ordinarily resident here. There are many instances where families have spent significant time in Australia working on temporary visas, paying their taxes, and contributing to society. They are settled in Australia and face enormous challenges if, for example, their child was born here with a disability, and it is seen unfair to send them home for this reason alone and deprive them of their ability to gain residency. These changes are a significant shift away from the historic one fails, all fails approach to medical results. If you have been wondering, like we do, what our assistant immigration ministers actually get up to, one of them has been busy visiting India to promote the new MATES visa program. Our assistant immigration minister, Matt Thistlethwaite, released a media comment on Monday highlighting the benefits of the MATES incentive. And on the ground in India, there was a queue of journalists wanting to ask him questions.
There are demand opportunities in Australia, in artificial intelligence, in ICT occupations, in mining, in engineering, and in financial and agricultural services. There are opportunities in Australia, and young Indians can come to Australia under this visa, gain those opportunities to undertake further postgraduate study and work in those sectors, so both of our nations will benefit.
The new MATES program is a pilot and limited to just 3,000 places. However, it seems the minister has his facts confused. There is no provision or the need for MATES applicants to study in Australia. It is a 2-year working do-as-you-like visa, and that's it. A mistake he again promoted in answering another journalist.
Yeah, the MATES visa is about trying to attract some of the most talented young Indians who are working in fields such as artificial intelligence, in renewable energy, in mining, in engineering, to undertake postgraduate study in Australia with opportunities to work in those fields.
According to the government's own fact sheet, nothing indicates that MATE visa holders will even have permission to study in Australia. Perhaps the Assistant Minister needs to find a new scriptwriter.
Malcolm and I have drafted a slightly different version to this speech.
Let's see. We shall, of course, be reviewing a wide range of options over the whole field of government expenditure. But this doesn't say anything.
Oh, thank you, Prime Minister.
Of course, the Indian media was well prepped for his visit, and it was widely covered, including this picture of these two coffee roasters at a marketplace, a published photograph they will remember for the rest of their lives. We are unsure if they got to question him about their prospects of migrating to Australia. Like the new working holiday arrangement with India, it will be a lottery-based selection process. As the article indicated, 40,000 Indians entered the ballot, paying $25 each. That is $1 million into the government's pocket for just setting up a registration page on their website. We are told the new MATES program will also work on a lottery basis, and no doubt another $1 million or so will be put into the government's coffers. I am definitely in the wrong business. Perhaps the excess money the government obtains from these overseas nationals entering lotteries just to have a chance should be donated back to their home country, say to much needed regional hospitals. After all, isn't that what MATES are about? Perhaps this so-called MATES visit was more about healing the damage caused by the government's processing arrangement for student visas with the much-hated Ministerial Direction 107. Thousands of Indian student hopefuls have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in refused student visa application fees. Instead of making money from our mates, the Assistant Minister's time would be better spent to sit down and listen to all of those Indian students in Australia and other nationalities who were denied their 485 graduate visa for just being 36 and over. The federal government has provided a fast-track pathway for specialist doctors to get registration in Australia from New Zealand, Ireland and the UK, all of which have similar educational requirements as this country. Once these doctors have gained the APRA registration through this fast-track process, this will act as a skill assessment, enabling an expression of interest to be created on the Immigration Department system. For the point-skilled visas, the cut-off age is 45, but there are still employer-sponsored labour agreement streams to consider where an age concession of up to 55 applies. Overall, the gateway to the expedited specialist pathway is a list of pre-approved qualifications. According to APRA, they say, medical specialists with a qualification on the board's expedited specialist pathway accepted qualifications list can apply directly to the medical board APRA for specialist registration rather than be assessed individually by a specialist college. There is too much detail for this video, so we will leave a link to the APRA registration information and the requirements in the description of this video. It's been the end of another busy week, but I did take notice of one comment on our channel from Faisy King of The Art of Reason. Thanks for another great update, Karl. A tiny suggestion from my side. One thing that came to mind is that wall behind you in the video seems too close and makes it feel like you're sitting in a very small office. And it goes on. Well, it's been 4 years already with the same background, so that comment triggered a crazy spending spree on Amazon, and on the next day it all arrived so we could give you this. I hope you like it, Faisy. Well, that's all for another busy week of changes. Remember, if you need help, we are always here. You can book a consultation online, but if you're in a hurry, just pick up the dog and bone. As always, take care out there, and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.